Hey everybody, I'm Bob Baker, and I'm Jazz Guitar today. We got a very special guest. But before we go there, we're going to say this. We're going to say that we appreciate you guys so much. Please subscribe to the magazine. It's easy. It's free. Like us, share, and follow on all the social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Um, we really appreciate you helping us out with the algorithms to keep this thing growing. That being said, we are joined today by the maestro,
Yeah.
Professor Barry Greene. What can I say? Barry, most of you know who Barry is, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But among other things, University of North Florida School of Music. Been there since 1995.
Yep. It's amazing. I'm only 40 years old. I don't know how I've done it.
I thought you were about 35. I thought you started when you were like 6. Well, you
Yeah, it's
haven't.
been 28 years, man.
28 years. I mean, how do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy. And the
Yeah.
thing about you and I mentioned this to Cheryl Bailey when I was talking to her the other day from Berkeley. There's a few of you guys, Sean McGowan's one. There's that practice your ass off and play and are just as passionate about being an artist, a playing artist, gigging artist, as you are about being an educator. And years ago, I took classical guitar lessons from a guy he studied with Segovia,
Wow.
and he never picked up a guitar. And I talked to a guy I studied privately with him, and I talked to a guy who got his 4-year degree with him in classical guitar. He said in the 4 years, he never saw him touch a guitar.
That's strange.
Isn't that really weird? But anyway,
Yeah.
you are a player, and not only you're a player, you're a player's player. Kevin Bales, the great Atlanta pianist who was, really known around the world. You're one of his favorite guitar players, and
It's so nice to hear. We just played last week. It was at a celebration for Bunky Green's 90th birthday.
he calls you out by name. When I ask him, who the guitar player is, oh, Barry Greene. He calls you out by name. So the jazz guitar today is what are you doing today? What are you doing today, Barry? What's going on? What's keeping you busy?
Well, today I'm done with UNF. So today I did just some final grading, entering grades into the computer and that kind of stuff. And I, every day I'm doing some sort of work on the video lesson site. So before you and I started talking, I was just making some edits to the finale file, for the PDF material. And this new lesson is pretty much done. Just waiting for Ulysses Owens, the Ulysses, the amazing drummer. But he's in California right now, so I'm waiting for him to come back to Jacksonville to record the drum parts, and then I'll be able to post it.
Well, very cool.
It.
So,
yeah.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit broader band, a little more general. What are you doing as a performing musician these days?
Really not much. The focus of my life is the teaching. Most of the time, honestly, is utilize doing what I just mentioned before, prepping lessons. There's so much involved now with that because I have to do every aspect of this. You know this since you work with film and stuff like that, but all the editing, all of the creation of the PDFs, it's just a lot. So if I did it every single day, 8 hours a day, I could probably knock out a lesson every 3 or 4 days, but I don't really want to necessarily do that much. But I just wait for the phone to. But back to your original question, is I wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah.
Like I did. I was up in Savannah a couple of weeks ago, playing at Good Times, and that was nice. With again Ulysses on drums, and that last big event was the Pat Martino thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, listen, I would love to do it, and I'm envious sometimes when I see my friends, on social media posting from these great locales all over the world, and. But I can't be two people. I just can't.
Well, not only that, it's nice to sleep in your own bed.
Yeah, there is. It is nice, and I do see this frustration from those same people on social media. But still, I miss performing.
Well, it's what do they say? I play for free. You pay me to travel.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's what one of the guys that was told me that years ago. He said I play for free. For free. The money is you're paying me to travel, to take me out of my house. So
Right.
So I have some questions for you. Actually, one question for you that I'd like, yeah. And you've been educating people for like ever. You obviously you perform at a very high level. If you were to give somebody, what are the top 5 things that you need to do to be when I say successful guitar player, I don't mean financially successful. I'm talking about to be able to, in other words, if someone said to you, I want to be a pretty good guitar player, I'm right now I'm okay, and I want to grow. I want to be better. I want to be this, that, and the other thing. And I want to be able to hang pretty well. What are the top 5 things that people need to either do or develop, or what would you say?
Well, I mean, just like anything in life, I believe the number one thing is you just have to devote your life, and it has to be an all-encompassing desire to better yourself, to be the best that you can possibly be. I know it's real cliche sounding, but at 61 years old, a lot of those old cliches are dead on true. And to me, that's the biggest thing. Nothing was going to stop me from accomplishing what I've done. I don't mean necessarily with the lesson site or UNF, just to be, the best, like I said, that I could possibly be. And, you said you shouldn't base it on the financial thing. They usually kind of, in my opinion, go hand in hand, because people want to be around you. They want to spend time with you, and all of that can, turn into a source of, revenue. But that's the number one thing. The rest of it is just nuts and bolts kind of stuff. If you find that you're having issues with your picking hand, develop exercises that focus on that, and just don't phone it in. In other words, like open up a method book, and just start playing the exercises that are there. You have to become very, very aware of where your particular issues are and working on them specifically. And speaking of Kevin Bales again, Kevin was really about that as well. He had a great saying. It was practice to fix mistakes.
Right.
And I think of it now as practice to fix problems. I still have a couple of issues that I've not yet worked the kinks out. And like you were saying, I'm 61. I could close the computer right now and just say, I'm done. I'm just going to go live. But I want to fix them. And so every single day I'm working on those specific things just to help to become even more fluid than I am at the moment. So yeah, there's that. And I think one other thing, I don't know if I can come up with 5.
Go ahead. Give us.
But the third one would just be the way you perceive music and playing music in general. I use the term nuts and bolts because I think of that part of it as the mechanics of playing an instrument. And, anybody, if you devote the time and you're playing with proper technique, are going to become masterful at something if you put thousands and thousands and thousands of hours into it. Again, the key is you're doing it in a way that is technically, correct. As you know, I don't mean you personally, but I'm saying bad habits are hard to break.
Right.
So if you can get on the ground floor and your right hand and your left hand are really in a natural position where the guitar seems to almost play itself, you multiply that by 25 years, you're going to be playing the crap out of the instrument. That's all there is to it. So for me, that stuff is just a matter of discipline and, determination and just perseverance. But the artistic part is the hardest part. And I can confidently say this after teaching for so long. It's the most difficult thing to teach somebody. It's hard to say, hey, your time feels a little off. What do you say? I'd say to that person the same thing I've been saying forever, is you just identify with the musicians whose time feel you really admire and play along with those records all day long. The whole idea, I think where things go wrong, so let's just say this is number 4, but more of a warning,
right,
to say that where people go wrong is when they approach this, and I see this all the time because I get questions like this almost daily. Hey, on that G7 flat 9, could I use the whole tone scale, or can I do this or do that? That's if you approach the music that way, it's going to sound like you're just playing a bunch of scales.
Oh,
so I'll just wrap that question by saying because it goes in complete conflict with what I do at UNF, because that's what I teach that way because. We have to, but really what I would love to be able to do is just to say to a class, here are 5 transcription projects like Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, whatever it may be. Come back in 2-3 months, and then we'll look through it. Oh yeah, there's the diminished arpeggio, there's a harmonic minor scale, there the whole tone scale, or whatever it is. But by that time, you've already acquired all the nuance of the solo itself and the feeling and all the things that are, like I just mentioned a moment ago, so hard to teach, are automatically just by osmosis, incorporate it into your musicianship.
You said two really important things that I'm gonna grab onto, I think, for most people. One is the lack of attention that a lot of guys and girls put on their right hand. Well, if they're right-handed, on their picking hand. They're so focused on what's going on with the left or the fretting hand. What the position, where am I going to be? What am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And they forget that the other half of music is dynamics and phrasing, and which is all here, to get that right. And we're talking the fine nuances of phrasing happen here, to me anyway. So people don't focus enough on their right hand. I that's what I see. When I'm just watching people play. I don't teach people, but I have to watch a lot of guitar players play to do what I'm doing right here.
Right.
I most of the information that I get on guitar players, I get that information by watching their YouTube videos. And let me just say, while I'm talking about that, I recommend that if you're trying to become a performer and trying to make sure you're out there making YouTube videos and publish them, because that's where people can see you how you really play, not how you record. And then the other thing that that you said that I think is really important, in terms of getting better, is listen to people that you like their feel. I mean, it's not just transcribe solos you like, but listen to people that you like their feel, and then play along with those records, and that feel will start to get into your blood, into what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I've never heard anybody say that before. Of all the people I've talked to, I've talked to a lot of people now, and I've never heard anybody say that before. I think that's a nugget right there. That's a beautiful piece of gold nuggetry, if you will.
Nuggetry.
Nuggetry, yeah. Nuggetry.
Yeah.
How's that for a word? Go to the English department. See if they would jump on
I
it.
will.
I will. So someone walks into you, maybe not necessarily UNF guy, because you've got a curriculum, you've got a program, you've got to get them through a protocol, all that stuff. You got to go through juries, and they have to go from point A to point B through the plan. But let's say a guy walks into start studying with you online or whatever it is that you're going to do. What are the things that people are coming to you for? What are they asking for you to do?
It's the stuff we just began to talk about. There's a bazillion and one books on theory, and there's tons of YouTube videos. They're all, in my opinion, most of them are pretty accurate. There's a couple of moments where I cringe because maybe the terminology isn't right. But that's just because I went to a particular set of schools, So it's the artistry part. There's such a sense of frustration where people work so hard, and sometimes they'll hold up, a stack of books this thick, including some of my own, and they're not making any progress because they're skipping that thing that we're talking about right now. And because I think unfortunately it's done in reverse. So what I get them to do is I'll cite them a couple of solos. One that I always recommend is Greene's Greenery by Grant Green. I know it's a lot of green in there, but it's a B-flat blues. It's a great solo, and a great simple little melody. And I tell them, learn the head, learn the solo, play along with that record every single day. And then you and I will sit down together and I'll point out where, the theory part of it all comes into play. But I don't really think that those guys, when I say those guys, I mean guys like Wes and Grant Green, Kenny Burrell, that whole era of jazz guitar. I don't think they spend as much time as we do today talking about harmonic minor and stuff like that. No. I don't. It's just language, snippets of language.
No way in hell. They heard it, played it.
Right.
Kenny's still out teaching at UCLA. I mean, he's, 91 or something like that. I was talking to Bruce Foreman yesterday, and he said that, Kenny's still, over there, hanging out.
Right. That's great.
Doing his thing. Great. So, and then Bruce, of course, is at USC. And I was talking to him, and he's out performing as well. And I asked him kind of, similar questions, and he gave me basically similar answers. So that's a good thing. Great minds think alike, and you guys all see the same. The kind of problems that you deal with are the kind of problems that everybody seems to come
right.
with,
And in a way, it's not that it's a good or bad thing, but let's face it. Not everybody. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but not everybody can do this. You know what I mean? At a high musical level. Just as if somebody were to say to me, if I were to say to you, I'm going to become a painter, and I set my sights on being the next Rembrandt, whatever it may be, it's very unlikely I'm going to be able to manage that. I just think there's an inherent natural. I've been a guitar player since I'm 10 years old, and just for the joy of holding the instrument and playing along with Led Zeppelin records and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't thinking in terms of a career or a lifetime of pursuit of studying this. So it's got to be that. It's just got to be this magnetic kind of, maybe that's not even the right word, but you're just drawn to this. And, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is if it were just a matter of practicing and learning the theory, everybody would be sounding like Wes Montgomery. But there's only one person that sounds like Wes Montgomery. And I think that's a good thing, you know, I really, really do. I really do. I mean, listen, when you hear me, you could tell who I've checked out, and I'm comfortable with that. I know that. But when you hear Pat Metheny, you know, you'd be hard pressed to find the Wes Montgomery in his playing, although he cites him as one of his most major influences and had transcribed tons of his solos. Yeah. And was apparently just one comment from a local musician that said, "Hey, why are you doing that? Why don't you sound like yourself?" That he took to heart. And he's got one of the most unique voices on the guitar, you know. So regardless of which path you take, there has to be that element of just that natural instinct to, you know, play this music in a way that feels, you know, that just feels beautiful the way you present it. And it has so little to do with the stuff that we spend the most of the time talking about in school and online, you know. So
I'm laughing because I totally agree with you. I mean, I just 100% agree with you on that. And you know, I hear guys as soon as I hear or see people talking about that stuff, I just kind of go, oh, I roll my eyes, because if that's what you're talking about, that's nice, but that's not music. That's a roadmap for music. And the way that I sort of equate that, if you will, is when you see a topographical map of a hike you're going to go on. There's a lot of detail there, a lot of stuff, but that ain't the hike. And when you get out there on the hike, you see the trees, you see the this, you see the that, you see that, oh, we better, you know, ignore that bush there, that kind of thing. But the other thing I was going to say really quickly is that you can watch a downhill skier, but not everybody's going to be able to be a downhill race skier. You know, you got to have certain skills and abilities to be able to get to that level. And you can try and you can practice, you can do everything you want, but the guys that are at the top, you know, they've got something else in them, either physically or mentally or both, or coordination. You know, they have that thing, and all you can do is be the best that you can be if you work as hard as you can at it and all that.
Right. Just nurture that gift that you have to as far as you can take. One thing I just, you know, mention, because you made me think of it, is, you know, even the events that, you know, you and I were on together, the thing that we did in Savannah with Frank Vignola. Mm-hmm. You know, so we're, you know, if I'm sitting in the lobby in that bar talking to Jimmy Bruno, we've never has the word scale even come up ever. What we talk about is, you check out that record, you check out this guy, check out that guy. Yeah. And then, you know, it's never about, wow, you played that Mixolydian scale so amazing today. It's never that. Never that. So on one hand, I might sound hypocritical because I teach this all day long. I do stress that it's all super important, but it should be afterwards. You know, I'll just throw out another analogy that I like to use, which is, you know, by the time we're like 5 years old going to kindergarten, right? When we're just tiny little people, we already can speak the English language well enough to communicate our needs pretty well, you know, without any kind of
man. I really love that adverb. I love that adverb you just used, and boy, that, you know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you know. But all I'm saying is it was unnecessary. You just picked up snippets of language, and you just learned how to start to speak with people. To me, music exactly the same thing. Yeah.
You don't sit and diagram your sentences that you just spoke, or the sentences that somebody else just spoke, or say, oh yeah, noun, verb, adverb, you know, whatever it is. And you know, we don't do that. And it's the same thing. You know, Kevin Bales, I was in a class one time because I studied with Kevin, you know, in class, and I don't know if I'm doing him a service by saying that, to be honest with you, but anyway, but somebody asked him about modes. He said he didn't use this language because we were in school, but I will. He said, "What the fuck with modes?" He said, "What do I care about some Greek islands?" I mean, you know what I mean? He was like,
"That's funny."
You know, it was. I thought, yeah, because you know, you get people that go, "Well, that's the, you know, Ionian, Mixolydian, you know, Phrygian, blah 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 blah." And I'm going, okay. And, you know, I asked a teacher that I had, because I've had like 15 different guitar teachers over the years. I asked him, I said, how did Wes put all this stuff together? He said, Bob, Wes just heard it and played it. He heard it in his head and he just played it. It was just part of his thing. He said, it wasn't mapped out like I'm going to do this because it's hip. This is what I think. This sounds hip to me. I'm going to express myself this way.
Right, but when you listen to him and look at those transcribed solos, you could see that he spent a good amount of time checking out Charlie Parker. He's got a lot of that same kind of enclosed language or the chromaticism, and so it doesn't. I think it's rare that it comes from like nowhere. Like for me, think of something like Louis Armstrong, which was just like, how did that even happen? Coming from that time. Do you know what I mean? Coming from European classical music and he's got a whole new way of playing music. But most of us are derivatives of something. And when I hear Wes, I can hear the history prior to him in his playing. It's just that the way he's probably one of the most finesseful, lyrical, great time field sounding guitar players that ever lived. That's why we all admire him so much. And that's the stuff that I'm talking about. If somebody can figure out how to teach that, man.
It's so funny. You sit here and play octaves, but that ain't Wes, I mean, we can all play octaves, but we can't. It ain't Wes. It's his feel. Well, everything about him. When I transcribed that stuff and I watched I'm listening to what he's doing, I said, it's like it's not guitar. It doesn't come from the guitar. It comes from something else. It's not like a lot of guys play the guitar with their eyes. Is this going to look cool if I play this lick? How's this look cool? It's like if you take a piano, if you do this on the guitar, check this out. That ain't much of anything on the guitar, but you do that on a piano and your fingers are starting to get tied in knots.
Right.
The piano player will go, whoa, what? And that's that's kind of where that all falls. So let's bring this back around. So what kind of stuff are you working on in your own music these days? What do you spend time? Where are you spending your time?
I don't have a set agenda necessarily. Like for instance, I was just prepping for that concert in Savannah those 2 nights with Scott Giddens' group, and Scott sent a list of tunes, and some of them, I really had to shed. And sometimes there'll be a harmonic movement or a chord, that maybe I haven't dealt with enough, and I'll just kind of just dig deeper and deeper in. But for me, just a daily routine of practice is purely just playing some scales to warm up with, working on those particular exercises I mentioned earlier to fix the problems that I'm still working on. And then, pick a tune and just play. The Drum Genius app?
I do not.
Have you checked that out?
I've got some drum apps, but I don't have that one.
It's amazing. When you were playing guitar, by the way, I couldn't hear it because Zoom, I think, is suppressing anything other than voice. But it's great. Drum Genius. I've been using it for years. It's really an inspiring app because it's captured the feel of all these incredible drummers: Bill Stewart, Jack DeJohnette, everybody, Roy Haynes. I think the whole app allows you to download 400. I'm going to get it right now. You should. The free one gives you a few. The paid one, it's like, I think it's over 400 loops. But I'll just throw that on and just work on tune, But again, it's playing with time feel that's non-metronomic, and I to try to make sure that I, maintain that. That's one of the most common things that I'll hear as far as a compliment. Is the two are, like, people seem to really enjoy the way I comp, which is great because I didn't put nearly as much time into that as the linear stuff. But the time feel, I get that compliment all the time. You have a great time feel. Well, and when a drummer tells you that.
Believe it or not, we've been talking over half an hour, and I'm going to ask you one more question before I've asked you 2 more questions. But one of the questions will be, what would you like to? Is there anything you want to talk about that I haven't touched on? But before I go there, so one of the most challenging things I think for guitar players to do is to play well with the piano player, because the piano and the guitar have the ability to step all over each other. They share the same bandwidth, even though the piano obviously has a wider bandwidth than the guitar does. But so much of what's played in that middle area, and Kevin Bales, who is one of my all-time favorite musicians. I've listened to Kevin play, I don't know how many times. I've heard him play 1,000 solos. I'm always interested in what he's going to do because it's always fresh and different. And I mean, I just think Kevin's great. And so you're playing, and Kevin's very, very creative, as you know, because you play with him a lot. Very
Yep.
creative piano player. And you play with him. And what are the challenges and what are the surprises and what are the good things, and how do you approach playing with the piano player of that ilk? What is your approach with
Okay.
that?
Well, okay, that makes it easier just to say like somebody who's playing at a super high level. Usually just the individual artistry of each musician usually finds a way to make that work. And like you pointed out, though, Kevin is a real a real artist, not only in the sense of just being a great musician, but he usually will take a tune to a new place. So usually, like in the beginning of his solo, when he's keeping it kind of to where I expect him to be, and even if he threw in a couple of substitutions, things that are common to a jazz musician, if I catch them, I'll play them, and not in a way that's kind of mimicry. It's a little side thing, but it's a very annoying thing when, for instance, a musician might throw in a chord and then the other chordal instrument, because they just heard it and will play it right back like it's an ear training exam, versus just letting it wait till it happens the next time around. And so it evolves much more, that whole process. But eventually Kevin is going to go somewhere usually, and I'll just lay out. There's nothing I can do to help to make that situation any better. All I'm going to do is get in his way. So I'll just lay out. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I actually, I spend a lot of time. I play with Randy Hexter a lot. If you know Randy or
I'm
not.
not familiar.
Well, Randy's another great Atlanta player.
Okay.
He's the house pianist, among other things, at the Velvet Note on Thursday nights.
Oh, okay, great.
And he used to be the guy at AIM, the Atlanta Institute of Music, for like 25, 30 years.
I'm surprised I haven't heard. Maybe it's just me being a space case. I don't know.
Well, he's a he's a composer, he's a player, he's a lot of things, an arranger and teacher and all those things. But anyway, it's the same thing. When he's going, I hold on to the guitar,
Yep.
because there's nothing you just said. There's nothing I'm going to do to help that, or all I'm going to do is screw him up, and
Right.
I don't want to do that. So the last thing I was going to ask you, is there something that you'd like to mention before we say goodbye?
I mean, not necessarily, other than like a lot of us out there, we appreciate what you're doing, just keeping, the jazz guitar, just jazz guitarists in general at the forefront of, the magazine, and all the social media stuff that you do is really, really good. It's always nice to see. Yeah, because like we were saying earlier, you can't do everything. And to have someone like yourself promoting a lot of what we do is really, really great.
Oh man, thank you so much. And I appreciate that. When I was the director at Eastman Guitar, which I did for a couple of years, I only did it as a lark. I mean, I thought I was going to be there for 2 weeks. I ended up being there a couple of years, and they had hollow body archtop guitars in their makeup. I couldn't give them away. If I told you, I could not give them away. If I told you the numbers of those guitars that they sold at that particular time, in real numbers, it was like, it's stunning that, nobody was buying jazz guitars. Nobody was talking about jazz guitar. Since when Just Jazz Guitar magazine, Ed Benson, decided to close up shop, jazz guitar fell so far. It was, jazz is a total, back then, I don't know what the current numbers are, it was about 1.5% of the total music market. That's it. Yeah. Jazz, not jazz guitar, jazz. And I think I was expanding on, I was saying that, well, jazz guitar might be 10% of that. Might be, because you got vocalist, saxophone, trumpet, trombone, piano, all that stuff. So not a whole lot of people were paying attention to jazz guitar at the time. And I just felt like, we can do better than that. So that's where the magazine came from. It's an extension of Ed Benson was the one that told us to don't print anything, put it online. That
Interesting.
That was his advice. So anyway, thank you for saying that. It's just, and it pays for that new Ferrari that's in the parking lot.
Hey,
It's that.
hey, you never know, maybe.
It's that big.
Right. Little Matchbox version of it.
And now I got my Matchbox Ferrari. One of these days, I'm gonna buy a Matchbox Ferrari for real. I'm gonna say, see that jazz guitar today
Hey,
for that.
if
What?
you frame it right, how people do that trickery with cameras, you can make it look like it's the real deal sitting in the driveway,
Well, listen, man, you are an inspiration. You're a great player, great guy, good hang. You're dedicated. A lot of people owe their music to you. From you educated. I mean, how many thousand people have you taught over the years? Yeah, right.
It's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
owe their musical journey, has been
Yeah.
guided by you, and without you and people like you, that just the world would be a different place. So thank you for what
Thanks.
you're doing. So
Thanks,
Bob Baker with Barry Greene. Check out Barry's stuff. Barry's got a website. He teaches online. He's got records, that you've recorded over the years for sale. He goes out and gigs from time to time. If he comes to your town, you're lucky. Check him out for sure. Am I missing anything? That's your website is Barry Greene. Let me see here.
Just barrygreene.com. That's
Barrygreene.com.
it.
Yeah, that's pretty simple. And then you can find
Yeah.
on Facebook and oh, by the way, it's there's an E on the end. It's Greene,
Thanks,
which
Bob.
just to make sure that people got that happening. You're looking good, by the way.
Thanks. Feeling good.
You're looking healthy.
Yeah. Well, I had that heart surgery, right? And
Yeah, yeah, I do.
so yeah, I feel like I've made pretty much 100% recovery at this point. So I feel good.
Yeah, you're looking good, and it's good to
Thanks.
it's good to see that, man. So,
Thank you.
all right, brother. Bob Baker,
All right.
Barry Greene for Jazz Guitar Today. Have a great day, Barry. Thank you so
Take
much
care,
for
Bob.
doing this, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure, man.